In this video, I'm going to talk about the leadership style that is making more millionaires than any other leadership style. There are 5 primary leadership styles. You have the visionary leader, the sage leader, the champion, you have the empowerer, and you have the researcher. And in the past, the researcher was probably the most looked down upon and the least used and the least likely to make a whole lot of money. But today, in the world of technology, of data analysis, and AI, the researcher has risen to the top. So where people who are researchers are more valuable or seen as more valuable than they were in the past, and many people are able to rise to the top. So I'm going to tell you in this video about the characteristics of the researcher and how the researcher can work with other leadership styles. To kick this off, I'll let you know that no one has just one leadership style. There's more a mixture or a blend of them all, but some people are stronger and weaker in certain areas. So I'm going to tell you about the researcher, and by you learning about these leadership styles and specifically the researcher, you're going to learn how to elevate your value and increase your income, no matter what profession you're in or what it is that you're doing. So let's kick it off by talking about the first characteristic of the researcher, which is curiosity. The researcher is curious. It looks at every, or he or she looks at every problem or challenge or obstacle through the lens of they want to know more. This is a person that likes to read, or a person that likes to research, or a person that really likes data and really want to look at the numbers. Their leadership style is one that people will say, wow, this person is really going and really focused on the numbers and the data. So when someone is curious, one thing that they do is they want to question everything. They're looking at answers, every data, every spreadsheet on how they can get things better and how they can do things better. The good thing about this is that this person is always learning, knowing that they have never reached all knowing, knowing that there is so much more that they can learn, and knowing that they're going to have to continue their research as long as they are in the field that they're in or doing work that they are doing. They believe that the way to grow is the way to learn. So their leadership style is going to want everyone else to be curious, everyone else to do studies and research and love data. And so if someone else isn't doing it, the researcher is like, well, why can't you do this, right? And when the researcher tries to convince someone to do something, this research leadership style, what they're going to do is look at the facts, the data, the figures. They're going to look at what other people are doing. They're going to look at case studies for research to try to figure out where it is the direction that they should go into next. The challenge with a researcher is that they could come across as critical. Since they have this curiosity, what they naturally do is they question everything. So when people do work, they're questioning, hey, was that work effective? Or was that work efficient? Or was that the best way you should do that? Or could you do it better? And if people aren't careful, what they'll do is they'll think that the research leadership style is someone that's a micromanager, someone that is always critical, always questioning their work and what it is that they're doing. But people don't realize this is just kind of the leadership style of the researcher, of someone that is curious, someone that doesn't just look at an answer and say, okay, that's the answer, but looks deeper behind it and says, well, what does this mean? And they question every answer. So this person is curious. Next, this person is evidence-based. This person doesn't so much want to hear about the sob story. They're not moved so much by emotion. They don't really care about they don't care about the thought process of one person in a big organization. Instead, they want to see where it's moving as a whole. So in order to convince a person that is a researcher to change their mind about something, is you have to give them facts, you have to give them figures, you have to give them data. So if you're not a researcher but you work with a researcher or have worked with in some capacity a researcher, then what you have to do is you have to give them data, figures, and statistics, numbers, case studies, books, articles. You have to give them some form of data for them to process to be able to go out and make a decision, because they are evidence-based leaders. What a researcher needs to understand is everyone that works with you, that works for you, that's on your team, that's in positions above you, they're not necessarily researchers as well. So they may be moved by a testimony or one story, or they may like qualitative data on different people experiences instead of quantitative data on what everyone feels as a whole, right? And so you have to learn how to work with others. You want everyone to see the world through the lens of data and analysis, because you have an analytical brain and mindset. And so you're already thinking through the perspective of a researcher, but you have to learn, or you have to understand, that everyone is not built that way, and you can't necessarily persuade everyone else to be a researcher. You just have to understand and embrace the gift that you have and lead with the gift that you have. Now let's talk about how the researcher interacts with different leadership styles. And so the researcher and the visionary is different. The visionary wants to cast broad vision and inspire and motivate people to just move on the vision that they have. Whereas the researcher is trying to sit there and look at the numbers, right? The sage often doesn't go and look at all the data, the number, the statistics. The sage is moving off of wisdom. They're moving off of what they experience, what they know, and they have a deep-rooted wisdom where they're able to go and make good and wise decision. The champion is just going off of passion. They can they're just moving off of passion. And so the researcher may say, hey, let's sit down, let's look at this, let's study it, let's calculate it, let's figure out what we could do. And the champion is like, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? And then the researcher wants everything done right, everything done efficiently, everything done well, which may clash with the leadership style of the empowerer, because the empowerer wants to empower people to do well, even if it impacts the short-term results in a negative way, because they're looking at that person developing long-term, being more of an asset when they allow them to go out, step on their own, and do their own thing. Where the researcher is looking at, what can we do today? What can we do now? And how can we be efficient? And how can we be effective? And we're using data to be able to go and get things done. For me, I like data, I like statistics, I like evidence, I like analytics. So it's interesting when I sit in meetings with people who are sages and visionaries and champions and empowerers, because I'm always looking at, what is the data? What is the statistics? What are the case studies? What are other people doing? Where have we seen this be a success in the past? What you're advocating for, we've seen case studies on why you should not do what you're advocating for. What your plan that you're doing is not producing the data, the statistics, the numbers. And so when I learned this, it was really freeing for me, because instead of being mad at others for not seeing the world through my lens or looking at it from the same perspective that I'm looking at the world from, instead I was able to gain a deep appreciation for how everyone has different styles of leading, how everyone has different styles of working. And so this freed me up to, instead of going against people that have other perspective, to understand that, hey, it is more than one way to get to a destination. And what I can do is figure out, I get to choose my battles wisely, and I don't need to fight over every little thing. If people come to a conclusion that doesn't make sense with the data that's presented in my mind, then that is okay. We could still make it in a good direction. People are just going off of the different styles that they have to make decisions and to lead. So I hope that the information that you learned in this video really helps you when you're going and when you're leading, to really develop your leadership style so you can help elevate your value and you can increase your income. So if you enjoyed this video, then I want you to watch my next video, which is all about going and making a difference. It's all about going and climbing. It's all about communication. When you learn all of these things, when you have impact, when you know leadership, what you need to do to elevate your value and increase your income is you need to work on your communication. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about communication. So watch and enjoy.